everyone. It's Sunday once again, and it's now 2 o'clock here in the UK, 10 o'clock in Manila, and if you're in New York, it's 9 in the morning. I know that some of my friends are big fans of the band that my guest drummer this week is in. So I hope you're all watching. But anyways, yeah, it's not long to go now till Christmas. I mean, it's nearly the end of November, so it'll be sort of like December. So I've only got like at least I think 2 or 3 more guests or episodes for the rest of the year, and then I'll have to start again. It's going to be a really great year for Ask the Drummer next year in 2023. But anyways, I'm really happy that my guest this week has said yes to Ask the Drummer because I've seen him loads of times, but I haven't actually spoken to him until the last time that I saw him in Manchester. But anyways, the band that he's in, they're regarded as like CH6 heroes. So I'm really excited about that. So anyways, my dear friends, please welcome Rob Parry. Yay!
Hi,
Hello, Rob.
hi. How are you? You okay?
I'm all right. Thanks. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
all right. I'm recovering from a little bit of COVID, post-tour COVID, but yeah, no, I'm okay. So if I cough, I do apologise. It may
Yeah.
sort of drown out the sound, but yeah, I'm all right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that you caught it while you were on tour because you
Yeah,
were okay when I saw you in Manchester.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
running
yeah.
around.
It was yeah, yeah. It was funny. We were sort of. I remember at the time we were sort of two-thirds of the way through the tour, and we were always like, oh, it's terrible because it could be a spreader, amongst musicians and fans and everything. And then the very last thing we did was like a video shoot and a live broadcast for a company.
Yeah,
And I remember
yeah.
driving home with Andy in the band, and saying, "Oh, I don't feel very well." And I tested the next day, and I had COVID, and that was late October, and I'm only just really recovering. So it's been a bit of a
Uh,
while, but yeah, no,
well,
good,
yeah, yeah.
good.
Well, hope you continue to recover and just sort of like
Yeah,
be careful because it's still the virus still out there. So,
yeah,
when
yeah,
you go out, wear a mask and everything.
yeah.
But
Yes,
yeah,
mum.
so I'm glad that you're here and thank you again for
Yeah,
saying
no,
yes
no,
to
of
us.
course. I'm very honoured to be here with having all the other drummers that you've had on before. Some very
Oh,
famous and very inspirational drummers for me. So, yeah, love being here.
thank
Thank you.
you. Well, as I've said earlier, I've seen the Chesterfields quite a few times, over the years. I mean, since 2018, I think 2019. But the last time I saw you in Manchester at the Talleyrand, that was actually the first time that I spoke to you. I
Yeah,
think I've just sort of like smiled at you before, and then every time I'm sort of like asked for like photographs, you always know where to be found. I think it was so like either in the dressing
yeah,
room or something. But
yeah,
I remember there was one time, I think the very first time I saw you at Gulliver's.
yeah.
We
In
had
Manchester.
like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, in Manchester. There's like a group photo, and I remember Charlie Big Time.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they were there as well. So that
yeah.
was good.
Yeah, no,
But
that's a really nice place as well to play Gulliver's. It was upstairs, and it was yeah, that was a really nice venue, nice little venue. There was a couple of bands with us. I think the Sun Charms
it's
played.
but that was at night and day. But
Oh, that
with
was
this
night and
other
day. Yeah,
band, it's Davy Woodward that was
yeah, 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 yeah. No, but
playing.
we had another band with us as well, and I can't remember. Sorry, apologies if they were.
Dainichi, the
No,
Japanese.
Dainichi was at night and day. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
that was a good one as
they
well.
were
Night and day
good.
was great. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, let me just say that someone called Tom. He's a good friend of mine on Facebook. Tom Wilozinski. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He wants me to say that he's a big fan of the Chesterfield. So I hope he'll join us later. But yeah, hello to Tom.
yeah. Hi Tom.
So yeah, so welcome to Ask the Drummer. Episode 61 is all about you, Rob Parry. So
Yeah.
I've asked you, I've asked you earlier before we came on live, where are you from? So you're born in Cornwall, you said?
Yeah. I was born in Cornwall.
Yeah.
My father was in the Navy, and there was a naval base there, and I've slowly worked my way up country to Yeovil. So it's not very far, but it's I'm getting there towards maybe maybe Bristol next or something like that. But yeah, I've been in Yeovil really all my sort of adult life. I think probably 1980, something like that. We moved here. Um, yeah, so I was lucky enough to kind of move into an area that was quite up and
Yeah.
coming in terms of music. As soon as I sort of started to become aware of it, there was lots of bands
Yeah. Yeah.
that were around, sort of pre-86 and just at the C86. Um, I remember Simon Barber in the Chesterfields. You
Yeah.
know, he was running the Electric Broom Cupboard in a pub called the Wilmington in Sherborne, where a lot of people played, and I saw a lot of really good unsigned and signed bands. Penny Candles, and there was one band called the Close Lobsters, who
Oh my God.
they were so good. I remember seeing them.
Oh, yeah.
I think Simon might have had them twice, but I remember seeing them, and they just, I don't know what it was. There was a lot of jangly guitar bands at the time, but for some reason they had an album out, Foxhead Stalk This Land, it was just right for me at the right time, and it was really just like bang, I understood it, and the music was great, and the drumming was great, and that's all I wanted to do, from that time on. It was brilliant.
Just wait, what do you think?
That's right.
Yeah, hello. We're live again. We're back.
Good to be back.
Good to be back. And thank you for not giving up on me. Sometimes technology is like that. You think that
Yeah, I
there
know
won't
all
be
about
any
that.
bugs. But anyways, yeah, we were talking about Close Lobsters because I
Yes.
really love them. And I think Andrew Burnett, he's got such an amazing voice. It was
Yeah.
just really, really good.
And as I was saying, they came along at the right time for me when I was really starting to find my own feet as musically. I was really
Yeah.
enjoying like this the sort of the jangle guitar scene at the time, and the stuff that Simon and EBC and the other venues in Yeovil and Sherborne, the bands that they were putting on were really, they weren't sort of old sort of status quo cover bands and stuff like that. There was always going to be that kind of stuff, but they were quite interesting and took me in a different direction from where I was growing up. Listened to a lot of
Yeah.
pop and a lot of rock. But yeah, no, the Close Lobsters, and I've still got the vinyl that Stuart Hendrick, one of my friends at the time, he
Yeah.
gave me it, because he knew I was so into them, and it's a signed vinyl, and I
Yeah.
don't play it anymore because it's so warped. But I found them only a few months ago on streaming services. I think they're on Amazon, so I've been listening to them on there, and that still sounds absolutely fantastic. Yeah, really, really,
Yeah, yeah.
really.
Well, I'm hoping that Stuart McFadden, the drummer,
Yeah. He's gonna.
yeah, I'm hoping that he's gonna be on as the drummer. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed. I've already asked him, and when
yeah,
I saw them at Glasgow's Pop last August, so hopefully
yeah,
he'll
yeah,
say, he'll be on it.
yeah. Oh,
But
that'd be
anyway,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, did you come from a musical family? So what was your sort of like childhood like?
Not at all, really. No, none of my family play any kind of instruments, really. I mean, my sister was reasonably artistic, and some of my cousins have been to. I mean, they've done art very high level, so they went to the Royal College of Art and things like that. But
Yeah.
I don't think there's any musicians in the family, and I think I was influenced as a kind of a child at school by some of the stuff that we were doing at school. I always remember a music lesson with with our music teacher where we were dissecting the Beatles and
Oh,
comparing it with I can't remember what it's, some classical music like I don't know, 1812 overture or something like that, to see which was more complex. And I found
Yeah, yeah,
the Beatles more complex than that, just because there was different rhythms and stuff, and that's really where I got interested in playing the drums. And there was a chap at our school who was deaf, really not total deaf, but he was really deaf,
yeah,
and he played the drums. And I thought to myself, this is fantastic. If he can play the drums and he can't hear, and it looked really good, and there was arms everywhere, and it looked very energetic. And as a child, it may be hard to understand that I wasn't always the best behaved, like a lot of drummers, I should imagine. I had quite a lot of energy, and
yeah,
and it wasn't really directed until I found the drums at about 11 or 12, maybe. I'd always
yeah,
sort of tap things, and like some of the other drummers that I've listened to on your podcast. I've had the pots and pans out, and I've had wooden spoons, and I'd always
yeah,
done things like that. But really, it was only because of a teacher at school called Reginald Eppie. His name was a lovely music teacher. Um, I asked him if I could sort of teach myself the drums, and play on the school drum kit, just to get some energy out. And because I think I was a bit of a tearaway at school, he sort of said, yeah, while I'm here, you can just play and do what you want. And I did, really, for 3 or 4 years at school. I taught myself the basics of drumming, and I watched a lot of videos, and MTV and things like that were starting to come out at the time.
yeah,
And we had a video player at home, and I had an Iron Maiden thing, 12 Wasted Years, which was fantastic, and a couple of other musical videos of bands, but they all had sort of snippets of the drummer, and that's all I was interested in.
yeah,
I play guitar, and I sort of play bass, and I'm teaching myself the keyboards and stuff like that. None of them to a particularly high level, but I've always only really ever been the drums, and I'm such a nerd about them. I'm such a gear person and stuff like that. There's not a lot I can. Yeah, yeah. My family are very very long suffering, because that's all. All they do is drums.
that's all.
All that drums.
Yeah,
So
but did your music teacher actually teach you some of the basics, or did you just sort of like do it
no,
yourself? They just let
no.
you use the drum kit.
Yeah. He was a kind of a classically trained, quite an old-fashioned music teacher. It was all about theory. He actually left to go to the West End. He was a really good, real good singer and everything.
All
But I
right.
think I was a bit rude. I think I was a bit mean to him, as children are when they don't really value stuff. And
Yeah.
it was only because of his good grace and kind of understanding that he obviously saw something in me that allowed him to give me a drum kit to use without any sort of stipulations, really, that
Yeah.
allowed me to really teach myself to play the drums. So yeah, so that was it, really. That's what I did for the first,
Yeah.
I don't
But
know,
is
15
so
years.
apart from this person who's sort of like a bit deaf who's doing the drum, was there sort of like a particular moment, maybe watching Top of the Pops or MTV, that
Oh yeah,
you
it's all,
actually,
yeah.
you saw it's like a band and they said, "Oh my God, that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
do."
Well, there was loads. I guess I started off really listening to what my parents listened to, like a lot of drummers did. So I was, my father was into things like ELO and the Beatles, and my mum really liked the Rolling Stones, and so I always had quite a good grounding. There was always music on in the house. There was always radio. There was always BBC radio, or occasionally some of the commercial stations, but it was always music on.
Yeah.
So we listened to a lot. And I've got an older sister, and she found she became a mod about, I don't know, 12, 13, when I was about 8 or 9, so I listened to a lot of that music.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, a lot of Northern Soul. So I had quite a broad um, exposure to a lot of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rhythmic music, and the things I remember growing up as a child was Spandau Ballet, which isn't a big claim to fame, but I remember he had a really nice drum kit, and same with the you know, Duran Duran drummer,
Yeah,
and there
yeah.
was a few others, but it was things like Seeing the Police when Stuart Copeland was playing, and the aggression that he played with, and you know, Clem Burke and people like that were always quite interesting, but it was always the musical drummers that I really enjoyed. And
Yeah,
Stuart
yeah.
Copeland was I kind of classed him as a musical drummer because he wouldn't just play a straight beat, or he wouldn't play a beat that didn't fit the song. So it's kind of hard to describe, but yeah, Top of the Pops, massive, yeah, massive influence for me.
Influence, yeah,
Yeah, because there was
yeah.
loads of stuff all the time. Um, you know, even when Top of the Pops was finishing, they did a Paul Weller special, and I remember seeing Steve White, and they played live, like totally live, and they did Change Your Man and Peacock Suit, and they were absolutely brilliant. Just like the power that they had as a band was fantastic. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I suppose looking back at it, there was the thing that made me want to be a proper drummer, a real drummer in bands, and that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was a band called All About Eve, who are kind
Oh
of
yes, of course. Yeah, yeah. Um,
sort of with Julianne
yeah,
Moore and
yeah. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, not Julianne Moore, that's yeah, Julianne Regan.
Uh,
Sorry.
Well, do you
Anyway,
remember? Do you remember there's an episode on Top of the Pops? Because I
oh
think I
yeah,
never felt
yeah,
like it.
yeah, brilliant, yes, yeah, her and Tim, where the cue didn't come
It's
in, and
already
was,
so like
oh
started singing.
yeah, I remember seeing that yeah, live. But they did Every Angel on I think it was Friday Night Live, and they played it live, and I remember vividly being really impressed with the band and thinking, you know, that's what I wanted to do, and that was probably about, I don't know, 86 maybe, no,
Yeah,
maybe before that, 85, 86. And it was around the same time that I was really going to quite a few local gigs and watching drummers like Rob Ellis and you know, Dom, the original drummer from the Chesterfields, and you know, there was quite a few pretty decent bands in the Oval that were kind of piquing my interest and making me want to do it. So
oh,
yeah. So it's around that time.
did you go to a lot of gigs when you were a teenager, when you were young? So
Yeah,
th-
quite a
that was
few. Yeah, I was lucky. The first the first gig I ever got taken to with a proper band was Iron Maiden. We went to see um,
Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it was 86, and my sister's boyfriend took us to see it, and I, you know, I was really short, so there were people in front of me, but it was Clive Burr, the original drummer from Iron Maiden, he was probably my biggest influence for many years. He brilliant drummer. He was kind
Yeah,
of a punk rocky drummer rather than a real heavy metal drummer.
yeah.
And yeah, we saw them, and I saw the Cult, who were a huge influence on me for many years.
Oh
Still
wow.
are, still listen to them a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, saw them in '87, and yeah, saw loads of bands because Bristol's just up the road, and we've got Exeter about an hour away, and Bournemouth and Poole. They do so. There's a few university towns with some reasonably big sort of venues, but not massive, not Wembley or anything like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
yeah, we used to go, used to do quite a few, and one of my good friends, Chris Newman, he had an older brother who could drive, so he would drive us sometimes here and there, and
All right.
we would go and see bands and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
sometimes he'd sit in the car like a
yeah.
father. But yeah,
Because I know that Bristol has got a really good live music scene. Because
yeah,
even now, you know, you go to Bristol, there's so many like venues,
yeah,
really
yeah,
good venues there. So in the 80s, it's always been like that. So like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Yeovil or in Bristol. And,
yeah.
yeah,
Late 80s, early 90s was a real big, really big time for the Southwest. I mean, it's always been, quite a good place. It's never had the cachet of somewhere like Manchester or Liverpool.
or Liverpool. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but it's always had a lot of really good and interesting stuff's come out from the Southwest. I mean, PJ Harvey. I remember seeing them. We saw them in a pub about a quarter of a mile down the road, the Yellow Wagtail, which was one of their very early gigs. And everyone knew then. It was just everyone was just jaw dropped, sort of how good they were. Sort of like a second or third gig. But it's kind of not surprising, really, considering the musicians and the abilities within them. So
yeah.
it's. But yeah, no, there's always been a lot, and I've always tried to go to quite a few um, gigs, as many as I could, particularly when I was younger. So yeah,
That's good. Well, Aiden, who's my tech support, he said that shame about the echo before, but sound and picture are fine now, so that's
good.
good to hear. So,
All right, thank you,
um,
Aidan.
yeah. So, what was your first band then, and how old were you when you
Mm.
joined your first band?
The first band I did a gig with was a band called Black Orchid, and they were a goth rock band fronted by a really nice guy called Justin Farrington. And we were just a four-piece, so we had, I think, a chap called John on the bass and James on the guitar. And I think James was about 13 at the time. I think I was 16, almost 17.
Yeah,
And
and this
yeah,
was in the 80s, wasn't there? So, like,
no, yeah.
and,
Yeah,
and goth. It's like goth is like goth and new wave. They're
yeah,
very
yeah,
popular at the time, weren't they?
yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I grew up with. If it wasn't things like classic rock type stuff, like I don't know, the Beatles or the Stones or Led Zeppelin, it was goth. I was really into the Cure, and early Cult was very sort of goth rock.
yeah, yeah.
Sisters of Mercy, or, lots of bands. The Mission.
The
Mission were
mission,
huge. Yeah, I love the Mission. I've seen them many times.
yeah.
And yeah, and we played at Yeovil College. It was our first gig, and people were throwing bottles at us and
Oh
booing us because
no!
it was brilliant. Because it was kind of, I think they were friends of ours, and they were like they just thought it was brilliant. But I loved it. I could barely play the drums, and Justin could play guitar and sing a little bit, and John could play the bass a little bit. So we were kind of really just finding our feet, and we did I don't know, 7 or 8 songs that we'd written ourselves, and I loved it, and I knew that's what really what I wanted to do. Before then,
Yeah,
I've done like school bands and stuff like that with just some people, and we do a couple of covers, Guns N' Roses or whatever was Zodiac Mind Warp or something, whatever was popular at the time, and a Beatles song or two. But yeah, that was the first time I'd really done anything creative that I'd put into it, and it was brilliant, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
yeah. It's always good to sort of like have your own songs when you sort of like do a gig, and
Yeah,
I mean it's good to do cover versions as well, because I think at
yeah,
least people or the audience are actually familiar with it, and then they can join in. But I
yeah,
think it's nice when bands write their own songs and have their own material, things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, very much. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, like a lot of drummers, I should imagine a lot of the drummers that you talk to are in 2 or 3 bands. I'm in a covers band at the moment as well, just doing pub rock and prog rock and stuff like that. But
yeah,
it's yeah. But the Chesterfields is the band that I'm in, and I've been playing. I suppose I've been playing for Simon in various bands for about 20 years, something like that. Maybe a little bit longer than that, actually. Yeah,
very
quite
good.
a long time. Yeah. So
Well,
it's
yeah, how many bands were you in before you got involved with the Chesterfield?
Oh
So,
gosh, I don't know.
because
Oh,
I mean, like I said earlier, that the Chesterfields are like C86 heroes.
yeah,
So, what was your sort of like? Were you a fan of?
yeah, yeah, very much. Yeah,
Yeah,
very much. I remember seeing. I vividly remember seeing them quite a few times, um, and really enjoying what they did. I always thought that Don was a really good drummer. He suited the band. I mean, they were incredibly fast. Some of the songs that they did were just, yeah, were good. And I always liked Davey. I knew Davey anyway. I knew him because he worked at college. I, I I knew him from the band, and then I knew him because he worked at the college when I was at college, and then my wife worked at the college when he was there, and and then he was in other bands. But I was always a big fan of the Chesterfields because they seemed grown up. They seemed like they were writing really good songs that were poppy, but also growing up, and they were sort of like local heroes. So yeah, I always liked them, and when they sort of finished, oh gosh, it's terrible. But Simon, if you ever get to talk to Simon Barber about this, it is quite funny. Well, I could barely play the drums, and I worked up the courage, and I don't know how I did it, to audition for his next band. And I went down to the studio, and they had nobody had set the drum kit up, and I was so nervous I couldn't set the drum kit up. I didn't. It was a different drum kit from what I was using at school and what I had at home, and
yeah,
it was just different, and it took me ages. And by the time I'd finished setting the drum kit up, I was so nervous that I could barely play. And anyway, I didn't get the job, but I saw Simon on and off in Bassinger and other bands and the Betty Pages and a few other things that he did over the years. And then I think probably in about 2000, somewhere around then, we I'd been playing on and off in loads of other bands, and I toured UK and done some stuff in Europe and America, and had record deals and bits and bobs. But I'd kind of I think every drummer goes through a period where they fall out of love with playing the drums. They kind of reach a plateau of what they want to do or where they want to go, and
yeah,
I think I'd reached that in the late 1990s, very early 2000. And Simon needed a drummer because at the time Mark Hogg, who's a really good drummer, he was in the Chaz to Greys and a few other things, and he's a lovely guy. He couldn't commit to doing a European tour, going to Czech Republic and
oh yeah,
things
yeah,
like that. And Simon asked if I would do it because he knew I was kind of in between things, and I said yeah. And that was a band called Citrus Boy, with Andy and Matt, who I don't know what they're doing now, but so we did this tour of the Czech Republic, and I loved it. It was brilliant. It was and it sort of kind of
yeah,
got my appetite back for being in a band and playing, and that was that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we were in Citrus Boy, and then we did the Ideal Husbands for a little bit, and then kind of a few years later we got back together and we did Design with Helen Stickland.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So there was the three of us, and that was kind of more of an art rocky band. And then I can't remember what happened, but somebody asked us if we would play a couple of Chesterfield songs. So we did, and we learned a couple. I think we learned Last Train to Yeovil and Shame About the Rain. And then we sort of like realised how much we enjoyed doing it and how much the audience enjoyed doing it. And of
yeah,
course, Simon's always, I guess, he's always been a bit loath, hesitant to kind of become the Chesterfields again because Davey wasn't there, and it was always a big emotional kind of. He would have to invest emotionally into it, which is Simon lost his sort of one of his best friends and kind of his the person that meant a lot to him to write songs and stuff in the early days.
yeah, yeah.
But then we played the New York Pop Fest. We got asked to play New York Pop Fest as the Chesterfields.
Is that in 2016? This one?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we sort of, I can't remember how it came about, but we didn't want to do it as a three-piece. And Andy Strickland at the time was kind of, I don't know if he was in between Loft Things and Caretaker Racings and all the other stuff he does, but he
Yeah.
said, yeah, I'd like to do it. I'd like to come along and be involved. So we had some rehearsals and we recorded that CD that you've got there. And we went to New York and played a couple of shows. And then that kind of made us realize that A, there was an audience for it, which is always important. But B, we really enjoyed doing the music. Really great songs. And and so that was that. And then really from then on, we've kind of just continued to do stuff as the Chesterfields. And then lockdown, Simon, Andy, and Helen wrote a load of songs, and we sort of we rehearsed and we did what a lot of bands did. We kind of exchanged ideas on YouTube and WhatsApp and things, and then Simon and Helen and I got together because we live local to each other. They live in Sherborne, I live in Yeovil, and we wrote the songs as a band, and then left lots of space for Andy to do his stuff. And then we had a couple of rehearsals, and then recorded what we thought were demos of the new album, New Modern Homes.
New Modern Homes. Yeah,
out now available at all good record shops.
And I've got that one as well. So
yeah,
that was it.
But yeah, that was a really, it would just happen to be a really enjoyable point where we were all, because I think we thought we were recording demos. Everyone was very relaxed in the studio, and we knew Ben, the engineer, really well. We'd worked with him loads of times. He's a lovely guy, very easy to work with. If anybody needs an engineer, speak to Ben. He's great. But so we recorded at Axe and Trap studio in Wales, and it went really, really well, better than we thought. And at the time, we were talking to John Parrish about whether he might like to come along and maybe just do some mixing or tweaking. And we sent him the demos, and he listened to the demos, and he said, well, they're really good. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to re-record them. We've got a little bit of stuff to do on some vocals, but other than that, we're fine. And we did some vocals, and then we went back to John's studio in his house, which was fantastic. And John put some keyboards down and a little bit of vocal at the end of Ace from Space. And it just all seemed to come together really. I would say easily, because I didn't write the melodies or the songs, but we all contributed, and it was great. Excuse me. And then it just seems to be, Simon was in touch with Helmut in Germany, and Helmut created a record label to put it out. He was really interested, and Lee was really interested, and put out a single for us, a double A side. And then before you know it, we're on a 10-day tour, and we've got another tour plan for next year. And these things, stuff that perhaps when you've left a gap of 20 odd years, you don't 30 odd years, you kind of maybe don't expect the audience to be there, but they are. Of
course. But you've always been so like with Simon, with all his sort of like various bands before he actually what do you call it, resurrected the Chesterfield. So that's really good. Well, during this tour, there's someone called Spence Roberts. I think Spence Roberts, I only found out about this actually recently, because he's a really nice person, and he's very supportive of us drummer and everything, but I didn't realize that he's actually a drummer.
Oh really?
The Leaking Machine.
Oh yeah.
Well, Spence Roberts said that you're a great drummer, lovely guy, and you've got a lovely kit too, and this is how I found out that he's actually a drummer, because he said that he's played it a couple of times.
Yeah, Yeah, because
So
they played with us in the '92 club in London, and
yeah,
they were really good band. Yeah, I enjoyed them. I enjoyed
yeah,
them a lot. Sometimes you know what it's like, Anne. Sometimes you know, you go to see a band or you're in a band and you have two or three support people, and sometimes you think, oh, well, I'm not sure I'd see them again. But Leaking Machine, yeah, they were great, and they were really nice people as well.
yeah.
Really,
Well,
really,
of
really
course.
good. Yeah.
Well, the Leaking Machine has got two of the mighty
Yes, that's
band
right. Yeah,
members.
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
was actually, before you sort of like said that you're gonna do a gig at the Talleyrand in Manchester, I
yeah,
actually wanted to go. I wanted to go to the London gig because
yeah,
when I found out that that the Leaking Machine were actually
yeah,
mighty, I just thought, oh, I would like to go and see you. I would like to go and
yeah.
see them and stuff. But
Yeah,
anyways, yeah.
yeah, that was a
So
good gig as well, London gig. That was great. I mean,
yeah,
they
yeah.
were all good for different reasons, but the London one was really very, yeah, that was really good. Enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah,
So,
so well, when Spence actually sort of like played your kid, I mean, this is something that I've only sort of like, I'm always sort of like wondering about it. You know, when there are like two or three or maybe four bands playing in one night, but there's only like one drum kit,
yeah,
and you share it amongst
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
How so like, what, how do you feel about that? Or sort of like, especially if it's not yours. I mean, I presume that
yeah,
the ones that you're the headliner, so it's your drum kit.
yeah. It was mine. Yeah, it was actually, yeah. I took it on tour,
Yeah.
and all the bands on this tour treated it with respect. I mean, you know, none of them held back. You know, there were people giving it some welly, but everyone treated it with respect. I thought it would come back with scrapes and gouges and things out of it. No, not at all. And in fact, you know, the heads on it are fine as well. So it was great. But yeah, it's a funny one. I've got a couple of really expensive drum kits that I wouldn't take for people to share because I've done that in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people have been some drummers are just not nice people. You know what it's say. It doesn't need to be a drummer to be not a nice person. Could be a guitarist or a singer or a member of the audience, but they just don't. They because it's not theirs. They don't treat it with respect, or even if it was theirs,
Oh, I
treat it with
see.
respect. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a lovely yellow drum kit once that I took to a gig, and it came back with a massive scratch down the side, and
Oh
the
no.
drummer was just a horrible person. But most drummers, particularly most sort of like touring or gigging drummers, are really nice, really kind of grateful to other drummers that they'll invest money and share their stuff. You know, I'm a kind of a great believer in paying it forwards. People, when I was starting, I
Yeah.
had some terrible gear. And some people were kind enough. We played with the Wonder Stuff in one of the bands that I was in, and I broke my snare drum in the sound check, and I didn't have any. We didn't have any money at all to go and buy or get replacement equipment. And the drum tech and the drummer from the Wonder Stuff, I've forgotten his name now, but quick as a flash, they just lent me a snare, and it saved our gig. It was Gloucester Guildhall, and we went on and did stuff, and that helped us get signed. And it was
Yeah.
because he was really nice, and they were like, well, you know, don't worry about it. Use this one, and then give it back at the end. And it was just, yeah, it's just great. It's a nice community
Oh.
most of the time,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, it's unusual if a drummer's not nice. I mean, you get them, you do get them. Some of them are knobheads, but you know, most of
I
them.
don't think I've ever met a not nice drummer. I've always sort of like met wonderful drummers. They're all nice and they're all very
They
friendly
are.
and everything.
Uh, yeah, and generally speaking, we're not very competitive. Um, not you know, if we were competitive, we'd be lead guitarists and stuff like that. But no, quite a supportive group. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can probably only think of two or three drummers that I wouldn't want to see again. The rest of them have been genuinely lovely people. You
Yeah.
know, really nice. So you know, and they are
And
just normal people, aren't they? But you know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But when you sort of like get together, I mean, you were telling me about sort of like Matthew Priest earlier
yeah.
before we came on live, that when drummers sort of like get together, I mean, not in the sort like, just maybe in a friendly thing. Do you ever do drum talk? Do you ever sort of like
Oh my
ask each
God,
other
yeah.
or
That's
share
it.
share ideas or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that?
That's the only time. That's the only reason we get together. We have to. You don't see drummers together very often because we explode. You know, what we do is we talk about drums and about how much we love drums and about how much we love playing drums and about our gear and everything like that. And all the other musicians, like guitarists and that, they all wander off and leave the drummers in a corner talking. It's yeah, no, yeah. No, I've in fact, the last time I'd spoke with Matt Priest was down in Bournemouth. They were playing, and I cornered him afterwards, and I was talking about his Premier Genistic kit that he had, his green one, and. And about 10 minutes later, my wife dragged me away and she's like, I want to talk to the rest of the band. I'm like, yeah, you get away, go on, sort of thing. You go and talk to Andy and Nigel. I'll stay here with Matt, sort of thing. And it is, and he's a lovely guy. If anyone does sort of get to see him, he's a great drummer.
Yeah, he is.
Particularly
Yeah.
Dodgy, he was very inspirational for me. He took my drumming in a different direction, which is kind of what you want. But I met him a few times now, and he's a really nice guy. And I know Helen from the band, from the Chesterf. She knows him sort of personally, and I keep saying to her, have him around for a cup of tea, and I'll be there. Yeah, and talking stuff like that. But yeah. But
Yeah.
no, we
Well,
do. We do. We do. Yeah, we're very, very talkative drummers are.
yeah. Well, I know that he does his quiz nights now.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know where he lives, but he does his quiz nights, and sometimes I see him posting on Facebook. Because you're not on Facebook yourself, so you
No,
don't that
no,
way.
I came off of
No.
Facebook. Yeah. No, I found apart from the little pocket of drumming, there was a really nice group that I used to belong to called Buy Sell Trade Drums UK, and there was kind of a group there. It was like a forum as much as selling and buying drums
Yeah.
of really supportive drummers, but then everything else around it on Facebook was just horrible, like real negativity, and it was kind of found that I kind of found there was nothing I needed from it, really nothing positive. So I dropped off of that, and at the same time I dropped off of Twitter and Instagram as
Instagram.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not really on any of them, which only recently I was fine with. But when we went on tour with the band, Simon, although he's in media, works in media and does that, he's in print media. So whereas I would have probably been tweeting from the van about the thing coming up today and stuff like that, Simon was in a bit more receive mode, and that's the only time recently, well, for the last couple of years, that I felt as though I really should get back on it and sort of get more involved again. But
Yeah, I think it's great to be active on social media, especially so like
mm,
with bands and because that's where a lot of the fans actually get their
yeah,
information from now. Because like
yeah,
the
very much, yeah,
stores and
yeah,
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 and,
because
and Andy's really good at that. He will sort of publicize it on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and he'll talk to people. He'll chat with the people. Like we played a really nice venue. If you get to go there, it's in Nottingham called JT Saw, JT
oh
Saws,
yeah,
and the people there are absolutely beautiful. They're lovely, lovely people. It's a lovely venue. Only holds 60, so it's a really
yeah,
small venue. And we played there, and Andy was talking to people on the way to the venue, and so we kind of got a little bit of information about the venue, but also we got a little bit of information about who we were playing with, and he was able to talk to a load of people to sort of like interact with the fans and things like that, and it was really nice. But yeah, that was a lovely gig, and they were really nice. Yeah, nice festival
yeah.
check as well, which is
Well,
great.
maybe you should sort of like maybe it's time to get back on Facebook and then just post
Yeah,
things.
maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I'll follow you, Anne. Don't worry.
Because the this new album, New Modern Homes, I really like this album actually, but it's very good. I think social media helped quite a lot in sort of like
Yeah,
promoting this, because it's like every week there'll be a new thing coming up, like maybe a song from it, or
yeah,
like, and then it's like one gig at the time. It was sort of like, oh, we're playing here in London, and then the next one, oh, we're actually playing, we're playing in
yeah,
Manchester. And, oh, we're
yeah,
playing again. So I think in a way, for me, actually, social media is really good, because like, oh my
yeah.
god,
It's
they're
brilliant.
doing this, they're
Yeah, and one thing that Simon was really good at was kind of instead of just saying, "Bang, we've got an album out," and "Bang, is a single," and then "Bang, this is a tour." It was kind of I would like to say organic, but it wasn't. I'm sure Simon had a plan, and everything was released in stages to kind of just to
yeah,
build up that
yeah, yeah,
build up the I would say frenzy,
yeah.
but it wasn't quite a frenzy, but you know what I mean, the interest. And and it worked. We did okay on the tour. The Talleyrand was possibly um the
This is
lowest attended, because it
the
was
smallest.
yeah, well, it was an awful night for weather,
It
and there
was,
was
yeah, yeah. It
loads of
was
people
really
contacted
bad.
us
Yeah,
afterwards and said, "Oh, we couldn't get there because something was flooded, or
yeah,
and it was
yeah.
just terrible. It was a terrible night,
It was
but
just unfortunate yeah, it was just
it was
unfortunate. The
good
weather
though.
wasn't feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the support bands, and the room itself was quite nice, and the venue was nice. So
yeah,
we go back there again for sure. Yeah.
yeah. I love the Talleyrand because it's very close to me. I mean,
All right. That's quite selfish now. Yeah.
but also another reason why I like social media as well, because especially I think Simon and Andy Strickland, they're very sort of like engaging. So it's
Yeah.
like when you sort of like comment, they will reply, and then, which is
Yeah.
for fans,
Yeah.
it's nice when when the
Yeah.
musicians do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they feel
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah, I still do. Occasionally, I'll comment on a YouTube channel and something
yeah,
like that, and I just you still get that kick when somebody replies back to you. Matt, I've commented a few times on Matt Priest stuff, and he's commented back, so thanks or
yeah,
whatever, and you get that kind of you get that bit of excitement, and Andy
yeah,
and Simon are obviously
yeah,
they're old hats at that, but particularly Andy, he's got quite a big following because of his other bands, the Loft and the Caretaker Race,
caretaker
and
race, yeah,
yeah, and all the other ones that he's been in.
yeah,
So he's got a wider circle of contacts than Simon and the Chesterfields, which is great.
yeah.
It's really good for us because we reach a different audience slightly. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
also that you mentioned earlier about that studio gig that you did,
yeah,
and it was. I mean, the only reason I found out about it because Andy actually posted it on my wall, which is like, oh my god, this is so good. So I shared it with other people as well. So at least, because
yeah,
I mean, otherwise, it's there on YouTube or anything, but unless someone actually tells you, because there's
yeah,
so many things so like going on, and so
yeah,
many
there
so
is.
like the music and stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's one of the things. But anyways, I want to ask you about last year when you were at Shine On, because
Oh gosh, yeah. That feels like a lifetime ago, Anne.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but apparently it wasn't as so like it
Well,
didn't go
yeah,
as
I mean,
well as.
yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Um, Partly because there was a couple of other bands that we really enjoyed there, really enjoyed seeing,
Yeah,
which was really nice for us. But we had terrible sound on stage. But for me as a drummer, I'm all right if I can hear a little bit of vocals. I don't. I use a lot of the time I use a click track. Um,
yeah, yeah,
just because it's sometimes easier to use a click. Otherwise, you end up speeding up, and some of our songs are quite fast anyway. But
yeah,
so I don't generally have a monitor mix, you know, in anywhere really, because I can hear Andy's guitar and Simon's bass and a little bit of vocals, and that's more or less what I need. So I couldn't hear Helen's guitar, and it didn't worry me too much. But there was no Helen's guitar at all. Nothing. There's nothing on stage. Or it was really, really quiet, and she couldn't hear. She had nothing coming through the foldback, and the sound engineer was just basically, he was outside having a cigarette. You know, it was just it was the end of a very long night for him. We were the last band to play on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was packed, it was heaving, and everyone came up after and said how much they enjoyed it, and it was a really good experience for me, which is a bit selfish. Sorry, Helen, but you know what I mean. But yeah, no, it was. I don't think Helen and Simon particularly enjoyed the lack of attention from the sound engineer.
From the sound. Oh, right, yeah.
Which is a shame. But you know.
Well, again, it sort of like goes back to my question about sharing a drum kit, because they were like the Waltons used it, Candy Opera used it, and then there were also like other bands who used it before you. So it's almost like, how do you make it into your own setting? I mean, so can any drummer can just play a kit that's already there? Or?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's at that particular venue, it was a really nice drum kit. So it was a British drum kit, British Drum Company drum kit, and it was, you know, there's a bass drum, a rack tom, a floor tom, snare, hi-hat, a couple of cymbal stands, and that's about it. And the majority of drummers that I know will get by with that. There'll be, you know, some drummers, you know, we're not all Gavin Harrison who need, you know, 3 or 4 toms, a couple of floor toms. You know, we're not Nico McBrain who's got 25. Most of the music that we play, I mean, I'm sitting here, I've got a drum kit just there. With like 4 toms and loads of cymbals and stuff, because I'm recording some prog rock stuff for some people at the moment. But most of the stuff that I play and the Waltones plays, and you know, I'm sure Alex will let you know otherwise, really only needs a couple of toms and a bass drum and a snare drum and some cymbals. So most drummers, if they're right-handed or if they're left-handed and play right-handed, will get away with that. They'll be able to use that. Some drummers prefer, you know, like a second snare drum or a, you know, 2 or 3 toms, because they play a particular style of music. But you know, most of us just get by. So yes, yeah, and it's always nice for me to play with the band I know, like the Waltones, because I get on with Alex and the rest of the band, James and everyone else, and Mark. And it's nice that when Alex came off stage, particularly that gig, he said, "Oh, you'll enjoy that. That was a nice one," and it kind of makes you feel comfortable, because it, you know, it was my snare drum and cymbals, but everything else was the venues. So, you know, it's just nice that you don't have to worry about things. So
oh, that's because did you even get a chance to do sound check?
No.
Before?
No sound check.
That's something I find about like Shine On, because they're so busy. Like all these bands, so like playing one after the other. Sometimes I wonder, did they ever get the chance to sort of like test out all these instruments? Like, because with guitars it's okay, it's your own guitar, so you can play it. But with drummers, you know, you've got to sort of like play the ones that are so
but just the ones that are there. Yeah. And you know, generally speaking, we're pretty good. What we won't do, one lesson we learned as a band from that thing is that we went on and we didn't do a line check. So we didn't check all of our guitar lines and stuff like that, which is why we couldn't hear Helen's guitar. But you know, next time, well, in fact, where we've played ever since, we've not started until we're happy. And if the engineers are desperate for us to get on because they want to go home, they can, you know, they can just relax and take a deep breath and realise actually, you know, So
well,
you know,
how much is it? So like I know because I'm not very sort of like technical when it comes to things. I go to gigs and I just watch, and I
Yeah.
always say they're amazing and everything. But how much of it is so like down to the sound people? Like,
Um,
uh, you
quite a
know,
bit, quite a bit, honestly. I mean, because you can make a drum kit, or guitars, or the mix of the whole band, terrible. If you're really that way inclined. Um, we've been fortunate that most professional sound engineers, people that are paid to do it,
yeah,
generally want want it to sound okay. So the balance is about right between the vocals and the guitars, and the bass drum sounds about right, and the snare drum sounds about right, and the balance is okay. We played some acoustic and shops, acoustic stuff and shops that we did just before the tour. We did a thing called a Wessex Weekender where we played a few record shops,
yeah, yeah.
and there was no sound engineer for a couple of them. So like Ben from the studio turned up, and he helped us out, and then we had James help us out as well, who you met in Manchester. Oh no, he didn't come to Manchester, did he? No, he wasn't there. But yeah, so we kind of are we're lucky in that people want to come and help us out and do the balance. But the sound engineers really do a great job because they've never heard of us, and
Yeah, yeah,
some of them never played in the rooms before. They don't know the equipment. They just turn up and get a good sound pretty much instantly from the desk. It's
yeah.
it's a good skill.
Oh well. Well, yeah, because I mean, I know that most bands they actually thank the sound people.
Yeah, yeah. If you're a touring band, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say that shine on thing. I got these, which is the
Oh yeah,
souvenir,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's really good for the band to actually just give them away. Because
yeah,
I think there was a tour before. Shine On was the last one, I think.
yeah.
So that was just really good. That afterwards, everybody just got one of these. I actually got one for my other friends. I got two, one for me, one for my friend. So
Yeah. I think Simon still has a few. If anybody wants them, then get in touch. Get in
yeah,
touch on social media. I'm sure he can post them out. So
yeah. Well, well, I know it's nearly so like it's after 3 o'clock, but I don't remember so like seeing you twirl. Do you twirl when you play the drum?
yeah. So so gosh, yeah, I do. I do. I can do all of that kind of stuff, and I could. Yeah, in the covers band that I do, where we play pub rock, and we do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I do twirl my sticks, and I'll throw my sticks up in the air, and
Oh, do
that
you?
sort of thing. And I'll do the old
Oh,
sticks overhead and all sorts of stuff. But no, Simon doesn't do that. Oh no, no. And I caught myself um, waiting for Simon or someone to tune up, and I twiddled my sticks just a little bit. And I thought, oh no, I mustn't do that because Simon's going to turn around. And we had a really big video screen sort of like next to us, and it was on there. And I don't know whether he saw me or not, but yeah, no, he doesn't do that. No, Simon's not.
oh,
No, he doesn't enjoy that. I think one of his previous drummers, Kyle, had done some of that sort of kind of theatrics, the drum and theatrics. And I don't think Simon. It just wasn't. It's not his cup of tea. So he doesn't allow me to do
oh,
anything like that. So,
I see.
but yeah, I
I
can.
just,
Yeah, I
yeah.
can do it.
I just think it's nice. Like sometimes there's like a gap between, so like, and
Yeah, yeah,
then the drummer sort of like do a twirl before they go boom. So like,
yeah,
I've
yeah,
always sort of like find it fascinating when they do
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can do it, and I'll do it. I'll do it next time for you when you come and see us next time.
And just
Just
tell
for you.
tell Simon that it's just a special thing. It's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I know you don't like doing it, but it's a special thing. So because I
Yeah.
remember Jim Sharrock actually did the throwing
Yeah,
the stick and then
sticks. Yeah,
catching it. He did it once, and I was like, oh my god, that was so
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've done that. We do. Yeah, in the covers band, we do. Which one do I do it in now? We do. we do Salisbury Hill, which sounds a bit strange, but
Oh,
in Salisbury Hill, I do a couple
yeah.
of ones where I twirl the sticks because we're waiting for things to come in, and that the way that we do it. And we used to do the final countdown, and I would
Oh,
do it
right.
just before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh dear, brilliant, yeah. But no, I enjoy that because it kind of takes you out. I mean, the stuff I do with the Chesterfields is very straight down the middle. I don't really do. It's supposed to be about the band and the music and the pop stuff. Whereas, you see these drummers and they're everywhere and they're all over the shop, and they may look good, but I sometimes feel it takes away from the music, and the Chesterfields particularly is so straight
Yeah,
down the middle, pop rock drumming that there's no real play. It doesn't really need it. There's no real need for it. So
yeah. Well, I suppose it's like when I went to see A Flock of Seagulls.
yeah, yeah,
The new drummer, Kevin Rackett, I think his name
yeah,
is. I mean, every time it's like every boom, it's like
yeah,
12 boom, 12 boom. And
yeah,
in a way, yes, because it's sort of like I was just watching him
yeah,
throughout, and then sort of like, oh, I've got to watch sort of like Mike score because he's the one singing.
yeah, 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 yeah. And
But it's just so incredible to watch and see him and
yeah,
throwing sticks and everything. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen Blondie a couple of times when they were still gigging and
yeah,
Klimberg was still the band and that, and he was a big stick twirler. He would,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he was, with arms up and throw and all this sort of stuff, and he would do all of that. But and it sort of once you'd seen him do it a few times, you thought, okay, that's all right. But then it's part of his style. Some people I think do it a bit too much. Like every song all the time, and you sort of think to yourself, well, that looks good, but calm down now.
Well, apart from sort of like Matthew Priest, because I know you like Matthew Priest, there was like
Yeah.
everybody had this sort of like drumming heroes.
Um, so I mean, there's drummers that play for the songs, like Ringo Starr. He's a massive influence on like popular music, but you can't imagine Beatles songs without him playing. It would be different. The songs would be different. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and oh God, I'm going to get his name wrong. Mark Brzezicki,
Oh
who,
yeah, Mark. Yeah,
but
yeah,
the
from Big
stuff.
Country.
Well, yeah, yeah, Big Country, yeah, and stuff like that. But he did an album with the Cult called Love, and it's such a good album because the drumming takes the music somewhere slightly different. Um, and it's brilliant. If you haven't heard it for a while or you haven't heard it, I recommend going back to it and have a
Yeah,
listen to the drumming because it's absolutely brilliant. And I did. Oh yeah, Roger Taylor, obviously from Queen, because he's a very musical drummer, and
Roger
Chris
Taylor.
Sharrock, as we were
Oh yeah,
talking.
Chris
Yeah,
Sharrock,
yeah,
of
Jim's
course.
uncle. Yeah, he's a brilliant drummer. But you don't get to see him. He doesn't talk much about what he does, and
No,
but he's a
no.
big, throw sticks and 12 sticks. Chris does, but yeah, I've liked pretty much everything he's ever done. Actually,
Yeah,
he's a great, really good drummer. But yeah, and then there's other drummers that I like just because they're great drummers, like Buddy Rich and Billy Cobham, and people like that are just I listen to because I can't imagine myself doing what they do, and it's interesting to listen to,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Morello and people like that, some of the old jazz drummers. But yeah, no, I guess Clive Burr was my original inspiration. He was the original drummer
Yeah,
from Iron Maiden, brilliant, and he died of it was MS. But we saw him a few times, and in fact Iron Maiden used to do a charity show at the end of every tour where they would raise money for the Clive Burr Foundation, and we saw the last one at
yeah,
Brixton, and that was brilliant. No, they were so good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
do you still sort of like go to a lot of gigs, or you don't do it
Yeah,
no more?
I'm fairly lucky that Excuse me. I'm fairly lucky that I work in IT as a full-time job, and I go all over the country. So quite often I'll be in a town that I'm not 100% familiar with, at a client site, and I'm there sometimes for a couple of weeks, and so it gives me an opportunity to go to venues or
Yeah.
gigs, that I don't always see, and sometimes I'll catch up with bands that I've seen before, and small and big ones. But yeah, no, I do probably not as much as I'd like to, but probably more than I need to. And I always wear my hearing protection now. That's
Oh,
really, yeah,
it's a very important. Yeah, it's a very
yeah, yeah,
important.
yeah.
So you work as so like do your colleagues actually know that you're in a
Some
famous
of them,
band? So
yeah,
like that you're a drummer?
yes,
Do
some
they
of them
know?
do. Yeah, some of them do. Some of them came along to our things on the tour. So there was a couple there in Manchester that were there at the Talleyrand. Couple came to Nottingham, couple down in Rochester and Kent. So
Yeah.
quite a few of them do. Some of them generally don't care. They're like, so what? You get great. But some are really interested because either they've done something in music before and understand the commitment, or they're really into live music and all of that kind of stuff. So it's but I'm really lucky. My organization allows me to work from remote locations quite a lot. So when we were on tour, I did a little bit of work.
Oh, I
You
see.
know, I am sort of grateful to them. I'm not going to say their name because that's just too much. But
Yeah.
no, I'm lucky. I'm fortunate in that respect. But yeah, no, it is funny, and I do get embarrassed at work when someone came in with a CD, New Modern Homes, and asked me to sign it. This is in front of everyone
Oh,
else, and I'm like,
oh.
oh God. So why didn't you ask me after work? But it was lovely that they got out and spent their own money, and they really enjoy it. Occasionally
Yeah.
I get an email from them. What does this mean in this song? And are you going to Norway?
Oh.
Probably, yeah. That sort of stuff. So,
Oh, that's good when they do that. So
yeah.
did they ask for photographs as well? So,
No, not with a drummer. You know what it's like, Anne. We're not all mad. No, but yeah, it is quite funny. And I was thinking the other day when we played the 92 Club, like when we played the 100 Club a couple of years before, we kind of the audience were really into it straight away, and they knew the
yeah.
lyrics to all of the new songs, and the songs had only been out like I don't know a few days. They bought all their albums along for us to sign, and they were singing along, and it was really it was just a really nice kind of experience where you put something out, and it must have meant a lot to Simon particularly because he wrote a lot of the songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they were just as happy, the audience was just as happy singing the new stuff as the original
Yeah.
Chesterf
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. Although not everyone was happy. There's always one that's like, well, you played this too slow, or you've played that too fast, and all of that kind of stuff. But that's what audiences are about.
Yeah. Well, I've got two more questions for you.
Okay.
What about well, I call it like disasters. So, have you ever had any sort of, like when you're playing the drums? Maybe not with the Chesterfields, but in the covers, so like prog rock or rock
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing.
Oh,
Have
yeah,
you
no,
ever had
no.
sort of like have you fallen off your chair or
Yeah,
maybe hurt
yeah, yeah.
yourself or something? Yeah.
Yeah, I've fallen off the stage. I fell off my chair with the Chesterfields. I've dropped sticks.
Oh, have you?
I think that the worst injury I had, like when you do a fill, you can go down onto the floor, Tom, which for me as a right-handed drummer is sort of on the floor next to me, and I hit it and I broke my little finger, and it went out at a funny angle, sort of like that, because I snapped it, and this is in about the second song of the set, and I remember sort of like being, it was quite a lot of pain because it really hurt. And I looked down, it was terrible. and I
Yeah.
grabbed hold of it, and I just got some gaffer tape and taped them together and carried on, and then
Oh
went to
my God.
hospital. So yeah, drummers are mad. Yeah, they're bad. Yeah, I mean, I've had a stage collapse on me before, and the drum's fallen off to one side, and
Oh
uh, I always remember playing a gig and watching a drummer really struggling. He had his drums on a shiny floor, and the drums kept moving away from him, and in the end, he just stood up and threw him in the air and just stormed off, and that was that. But yeah,
no. Oh
yeah,
God.
pretty interesting stuff.
I've seen, but you've not done something like that in your life.
No, I'm far too professional for
I
that. Now.
know. I know. So like they always put rug on
Yeah,
the sort of like thing. So well, but I remember sort of like seeing one even with the rug that just kept going
yeah,
forward and forward. So it's almost like
yeah,
the drummer is running after.
yeah. But I have played before where my bass drum has been moving forwards, and the bass player wasn't Simon, but another bass player has put his foot on my bass drum to hold it in place for about 3 songs. So yeah,
Oh God.
these things happen. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, this is my last question for you now.
Okay.
So, what's your advice? Because you've been playing drums since you were a teenager. So, what's your advice? So, like, aspiring drummers, so drummers who want to be in a band, or any
Yeah.
musicians. So, yeah, yeah,
Um, I, gu- I guess there's a couple of practical bits of advice. Protect your hearing. Really, really, just get some half decent or good hearing protection. And this goes for you, Anne, as well, because you go to a million gigs. Look after your hearing, because it's a lot of us struggle. As we get older with tinnitus and things like that. So
yeah,
that's the first practical bit, I guess. Listen to as much music as you can, live and studio music, and I don't just mean lots of the same thing. Like when I was growing up, I was exposed to a lot of different music. I was really lucky to be right at the early days of rap. So we listened to Public Enemy and
yeah,
NWA and Body Count, and we were right there, and it was really interesting. It's just as interesting to me as some of the punk stuff going on, and some of the rock stuff that was going on, because it was different.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm very much into pop. I listen to a lot of pop music all the time. I'm not so much into the modern rap or the really highly processed stuff like
yeah,
Drake, things like that. It doesn't really interest me because it kind of doesn't speak to me, but I understand it does with everyone else.
yeah.
A bit
So
of
you just sort of like don't limit yourself to just
no,
one
no,
genre,
no.
which is
The
like,
the
yeah,
wider you listen, the more you'll find things that interest you, and that sounds funny. I mean, I guess the only other bit of advice would do: don't listen to Ed Sheeran because he's crap. You know, sorry, Ed. I know you're a multi-millionaire, but honestly, flipping heck, there you go. I'm sure he loves drumming.
what if Ed Sheeran asked you to play drums for him? So, like, would you?
No, I don't think so. I think the chances of that, Anne, are pretty slim, actually. No, he doesn't even have a live drummer, does he? So,
No,
you
I
know,
think it's just him, isn't it? So,
yeah,
like,
no,
just
at the
him
time.
go.
I'm sure he has a live drummer sometimes, but his particular, in the same way that some types of music don't speak to me, that really speak to someone like yourself or my wife or Fred down the road. His music doesn't speak to me at all. Whereas some of the music I listen to, my wife absolutely hates because it doesn't say anything to her. So what can you say?
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. I mean, again, I'm really glad that you said yes to ask the drummer, and I'm really. Oh,
Yeah, it's a
you said that.
privilege. Thank you.
Are you going to do another album next year? Or you mentioned about tour. Are you
Yeah,
touring, planning a
yeah,
tour again next year?
yeah. There's I'd love to. I think Andy's written some songs. I've got a couple of songs on the go as well, but whether they're Chesterfield songs or not, I don't know. Um, a lot of it comes down to Simon, and Simon writes the majority of the songs in the band, and Helen writes, and we're all busy doing things. I'd
Yeah.
like to. I know Andy's got some Loft stuff going on next year because they've got their triple album out, and they're
Oh
going to do
yeah,
some
it's
stuff.
a
So
lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
just be aware that there's some good stuff coming out from them, and I think they're going to do. I don't know. You have to speak to Andy about some live
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to do another album because I enjoyed it so much. The kind of the creative writing and the recording and doing everything about it. Going out with a new set of songs and everything. It really sort of surprised me how much I enjoyed it and got out of it. So yeah, I'd love to. I'd
Yeah.
love to do some more stuff. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it should be. I think it should be included in the Mojo top 75 albums of the year. It was all
Thank
I
you
don't
very
know
much.
how it's all like. Do you know when I looked at the list, I was like, I only know about 3 or 4 of them. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, we're not young enough. It's like yeah. I'm the youngest in the band, and I'm old, so So, but it's really good. So I think Simon found a rich vein of form, and I think I'd like to think that he now believes that he can continue that and do stuff because there's always been this pedestal that the Chesterfields has been held on, and I think rightly because they were very good, influential, and they wrote some really great songs.
yeah,
But I'd
yeah,
like to think that this new stuff that the Chesterfields have done is up there with some of the best that they did. I really
yeah,
do. And I love playing the songs. So
yeah,
as a
yeah.
drummer, it's great. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I hope to see you again, all
yeah.
again next year. And hope you come back to Manchester. If you don't come back, I'll go to London or whatever. But
Oh,
I'm
we'll,
sure
we'll
you'll
be
be.
back up there. We love
Yeah.
playing Manchester. It's great, except when it rains, which is a lot.
Yeah, except for it
So,
ways. And I would say to sort of like everybody who's gonna watch, because it's gonna be on YouTube, so like to get a copy of this, because this is just really, really good. And it's a brilliant art. This sleeve. I
yeah,
love the sleeve as
really good.
well.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
yeah. We were again. This is all Simon calling in favors from people that he's worked with over the years.
yeah, yeah.
It's yeah, very good. It is great artwork. So yeah,
Yeah.
which is good.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah,
yeah, get well soon. I mean, I know you're getting there. You're getting
yeah,
better.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And just try and be sort of like safe and everything. And
yeah.
I know
Yeah.
it's still early, but have a lovely Christmas.
Oh yeah, yeah. Are you going to see Michael Head? Are you going out on tour with him?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Starting on Tuesday in Belfast. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing the tour. So,
All right. Well, brilliant. Yeah, we'll have a nice
all
time
right.
with that.
Well, yeah.
And,
See you again.
yeah.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much, Rob. All right.
Okay.
See
All right.
you.
Thanks, Anne. Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Oh, thank you so much. He's so lovely. And you learn so much from the drummers. So I'm really sometimes when I go and see them sort of like live and I don't really know what's happening behind the scenes and things. I mean, it's nice to sort of like ask them. And whenever I go to a gig, I don't get a chance to, or not that I don't get a chance, but I'm just too shy to talk to musicians. So it's good that I've got this platform where I can speak to the drummers. So it's really, really good. But anyways, I won't be here next week because I'm going to Glasgow. I'll be there this weekend, next weekend. So I'll see you all maybe a week after that. It'll be, but hopefully I'll have something amazing or different for us, the drummer. Fingers crossed, but I'm hoping when I go to Glasgow. So, anyways, I'll tell you more about it on the Facebook page of Ask the Drummer. But for now, thank you all so much. And once again, love music, love life. Love, love, love drummers. And thank you so much to Rob Parry. So I'll see you all again soon. Take care always. Bye for now. Bye.